If I could write a song to tell you how much God loves you, I would do it right now, but it might take...
Nick asked me to share. Normally he gives me a couple of weeks because it's not my forte to be in the front of the crowd. But he asked me this week on Monday. And I'm like, okay, I could do this. What's wrong with being up in front of a bunch of people? All I want to do is share my heart with you. And that's what I kept telling myself. So, and I thought, oh, it's Mother's Day, so this is great. Happy Mother's Day, moms. You all look great. You're doing a terrific job. Thank you for tending to your children all these years. I know it's not easy. So as I started to work the Mother's Day thing, there are many moms in the Bible. Many have come before us, many examples we can look at, right? And I'm sure we all have our favorites. But before I started to do that, I thought, oh, let me find a nice poem that I could share with everybody that would express things we would love to hear our children say every day, every month, every year, every few years, maybe in a decade. So as I was looking, I found this song that Jimmy Dean, yes, the sausage magnet, Jimmy Dean wrote in 1976. He wrote and recorded this. It's a recitation. And I played it. What a recitation is it's somebody speaking with music behind it. That's my take on recitation. So here goes, moms. You know, most people look through their wallets or their pocketbooks, and now he has a little southern twang. I'm not sure where he's from, but if I get a little out there, I'm just mimicking Jimmy Dean. And way down at the bottom, past the credit cards, baby pictures, and so on, you usually find a little old piece of dog-eared poetry. I was cleaning out my wallet the other day, and I ran across a whole bunch of IOUs. Some of them 35 years overdue. And you know the funny thing? All these IOUs are owed to one person. And I kind of felt like that maybe now, 35 years later, would be a pretty good time for an accounting. Mom, I sure hope you're listening. Sweet lady, I owe you for so many things. A lot of services, like night watchman, for instance. Lying awake nights listening for coughs and cries and creaking floorboards. And me coming in too late. Anybody done that before? Never. Yeah. That's because you're not a mom. Boy, you had the eye of an eagle and the roar of a lion, but you always had a heart as big as a house. I owe you for services like short order cook, chef, baker, for making sirloin out of hamburger and turkey out of tuna fish, and big old Stratton boys out of leftovers. I owe you for cleaning services, the daily scrubbing of face and ears, all work done by hand, and for the frequent dusting of a small boy's pants to try to make sure that he led a spotless life, and for washing and ironing, who does that anymore, that no laundry could ever do, for drying the tears of childhood and ironing out the problems of growing up. I owe you for services as a bodyguard, for protecting me from the terrors of thunderstorms and nightmares, and too many green apples. And Lord knows I owe you for medical attention, for nursing me through measles, mumps, bruises, bumps, splinters, and spring fever. Let's not forget medical advice, important things like, if you keep on scratching that, it'll never get well. Or if you cross your eyes, they're going to stick like that. And probably the most important advice of them all, boy, you be sure you got on clean underwear in case you're ever in an accident. I know. And I owe you for veterinary services, for feeding every lost dog that I dragged home at the end of the rope, and for healing the pains of puppy love. And I owe you for entertainment that kept the household going during some pretty tough times, and for wonderful productions at Christmas, 4th of July, birthdays, and for making believe come true. And you did it all on such a limited budget. I owe you for construction work, for building kites and confidence, hopes and dreams, and somehow you made them all touch the sky. And for cementing together a family so it would stand the worst kinds of shocks and blows, and for laying down a good, strong foundation to build a life on. I owe you for carrying charges, for carrying me on your books, for the necessities of life that a growing boy somehow they just gotta have. Things like a pair of high-top boots with a little pocket on the side for the jackknife to put in. And one thing, Mom, I'll never forget, when there were 2 pieces of pie and 3 hungry people, you were always the one who decided, well, I'm really not that hungry. These are just a few of the things for which payment is long overdue. The person that I owe them to worked very cheap, very, very cheap. She managed by simply doing without a whole lot of things that she needed herself. My IOUs add up to more than I could ever hope to pay. But you know the nicest thing about it all? That I know she'd mark the entire bill paid in full for just one kiss. And who knows the 4 little words that she would say? Mom, I love you. So, I started to work about the moms in the Bible. And God kept leaning me in another direction. And I kept wanting to come back, and I wanted to share about the moms in the Bible so that we could have that example to look to. So I'm only going to share about 2 moms today because they really mean a lot to me. When Nick and I got married in 1984, that was one of my dreams that came true. From the time I was 10 years old, I wanted to be a mom. Excuse me. And I wanted to have a family. Well, lo and behold, we got pregnant in 1988, and I had a miscarriage. So, that's really tough when your dream is to be married and have a family, right? If anybody's ever gone through it, God loves you. He really does. And if you persisted, you're great. And I really appreciate that. In 1 Samuel chapter 1, it talks about Hannah. I'm going to share this verse 10 and 11 from the New Living Translation. It says, Hannah was deep in anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. And she made this vow, O Lord of heaven's armies, if you will look upon my sorrow and answer my prayer, and give me a son, then I will give him back to you. He will be yours for his entire lifetime. And as a sign that he has been dedicated to the Lord, his hair will never be cut. Have you ever wanted something so badly in your life that it just wasn't happening for you? In my instance, I remember being in the shower and brokenhearted and angry and upset. And I went to management because Nick always used to share, if you've got a problem, go to management. Well, God is my manager, so I'm in the shower and I'm having a ruckus with God. Like, why? What's wrong with me? I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing your word. I don't do it perfectly. None of us do, right? But here I am. I'm trying. We have a church in our home, and I just want to be able to love and give back, right? And then the whole thing in my mind is that there's people out there who are having babies, and they don't want them. dope addicts get pregnant at the drop of a hat. And they don't care what they do to their children. But I wanted it. And I felt just like Hannah. Standing there, and I'm giving it to God. And you know what happened? I went to a celebration, the Rock of Ages. Wow. I went by myself. It was in September 8th. And I knew that if I saw one person, I didn't even have to talk to this person. And here's a big mind picture for you, okay? Picture a big top circus, bigger than Ringling Brothers. And it's filled. There are thousands and thousands of people. The roads coming into this tent are on an angle from each end and in a center. I'm over here. It's the last day of this celebration. And I just see from here up, on this side, the guy's coming in. And I'm all the way over here. It's a long way, right? Anybody who's been to the Rock of Ages knows there's a big gap. All I did was see this guy from here up. My body went from here down. It just went warm. It was like God just healed me so that when I came home, that June, we had our son Daniel. So God answers prayers when you're faithful, when you go there. My second mother is Mary, the mother of Jesus. In Luke chapter 1, verse 31, it says, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end." I'm sure that throughout Jesus' life, Mary had many memories. I can remember when they first put Daniel in my arms. He was our firstborn. And I still feel that memory. Now, our son's been gone for 5 years. It'll be 5 years. But I still remember that. And I also remember my second son and my daughter. That felt like everyone was different, and each child is different. Trust me. You could look at one and they'd be disciplined. You could have a ball bat at one and they'd still be like, what? And then you got attitude, right? You who have more than one child know that they don't come with an instruction book, and they definitely come with their own mind. That's why it's so important as moms to raise them up in the Word so they have a foundation to go on. Anyhow, she also had to endure, she endured this lovely birth. She also had to endure the greatest sacrifice of all time. Because her son was the Son of God, and he came to give himself up as a sacrifice for you. And you and you and every person in this room. Actually, he came to save every person in the world who would look to him and confess him as Lord in their life, it says in Romans. This year, before Easter, I watched The Passion of the Christ by Mel Gibson. If you've never seen that movie, sit down, get at peace with yourself, and watch it. You will see how much that man did his Father's will and loved you and me for what he went through to do on the cross for us. The actress who portrayed Mary in that movie, I don't remember what her name was, but every step of the way that she took following her son through what they did to him struck such a chord with me. It's not always easy, I'm sure, for people who haven't lost a child to know what it feels like. That anguish and that pain and your heart feeling like it's being squished and stabbed at the same time. But she just watched and she waited. You could just see in her face the unconditional love that she had for that boy, who was now a man. I'm sure everywhere he went, she saw him in her arms. She saw him playing. She saw him at the temple when he was 12, picking a fight with the leadership. He was going to do his Father's will no matter what it took. You could see the compassion that she had. She just wanted to be there to hug him, to hold him, and she couldn't. It's definitely a privilege to be a parent. To be called a son or daughter of the Most High God is an even greater right that we have as a born-again believer. God's love for each and every one of us is unconditional. And if you don't leave here with anything today, I hope you leave here thinking about unconditional love, because that's what I'd like to share with you and give you some of my thoughts. In 1 John chapter 3 and verse 1, the New Living Translation says, "See how very much our Father loves us, for he calls us his children." And that is what we are. In the Old Testament times, people weren't called God's children. They had to toe a really stringent line and hope that they didn't screw up before they died before Jesus Christ came. In our day and time, when we accept Jesus Christ as Lord, as it says in Romans 10:9 and 10, we're God's kids. All hell cannot stop us from getting to him. It doesn't matter. Our time here may be 50, 60, 90, 100. Some people are living to 105, 110. God bless them. But if they believe and they confess Jesus as Lord, guess what? They're going to spend eternity with us and with God and Jesus. How cool is that? God wanted a family, so he created Adam. And he must have been a really good-looking, strapping boy. He took care of all the animals. He took care of the garden. Everybody's paired up except Adam. So God made Adam a nice wife, right? And it's nice to share that with somebody. God must have been proud. Like, look at my kids down there. They're just romping through the garden, and oh, look at they're eating, and oh, how cute they look. Because you know when your kids are little and they have their first spaghettis, and it's all over their face and their hands, and it's like you go right from here to the bathtub, right? But God must have been so proud. And then what happened? Get to Genesis chapter 3, Eve gets deceived. Not a good thing, because Adam followed her. Instead of taking a stand and saying, no, we're not supposed to do that, he didn't. He let her go. And he enjoyed that apple too, I guess, until they got carted out of the garden. I get the mind picture when they left the garden. It's no longer this lush, beautiful place. It's a desert. It's dismal. And not only that, now they have to work. And if you're lucky, you're a farmer. Me, I'm not so lucky in the farmer department. Anyhow, because they screwed up, all of us were born into sin. It doesn't matter how good you are, you're still a sinner. However, God wanted children, and he wanted a family. So he went to plan B. Guess who plan B was? Jesus Christ. All right, John chapter 3, verse 16. God loved us so much, he didn't want to give up on us just yet. Okay, so a lot of times, do you give up on yourself? You got a problem? Many of us can go pretty far back to our childhood, and we remember things, right? That first heartbreak. The first time somebody called you a name you didn't understand what it was, and you had to go ask your mom. And she's like that, who said that to you? Like, anyhow. John 3:16 says, this is how much God loved the world, that he gave his son, his one and only son. And this is why, so that no one need be destroyed. By believing in him, anyone can have a whole and lasting life. Whole. Does everybody have a whole heart in here? Or is there a dark corner that's still got a shadow in it? Something from your past that maybe you just haven't given up to God. Because if you still have that darkness there, you got to give it to God. You got to be able to walk out knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that you're God's kid. When you look into his word and it says I or thou or thee or who, put your name there. Put your name in there because he's talking to you. He's a personal God. He knows every heartache you went through from the day you were born to today. He knows where you're going from now until the day you pass away. And you sleep until Jesus comes back. If you're going to be lucky like me, you're going to still be living when Christ comes back. Because that's my mindset. I want to be here. I don't want to be here for after that, but I want to be here when he comes back to say, come on, let's go home. I want to be here. The New Living Translation of John 3:16 says, "For this is how God loved the world. He gave his one and only Son so that everyone who believes in him will not perish but have eternal life." Sure, if we die before Christ comes back, we're going to be in the ground. We're going to be worm food. Think about those lucky fish that are going to get us, right? They're going to be blessed. No, just kidding. But just think about it. We may perish, but we're going to have eternal life. We're going to get up, and we're going to live forever. Forever is a long time. If you have a night with a crying kid, that you've tried everything in your bag of tricks to settle, you know that's a long, long time. But when you fall asleep, it's only a second before Christ is like, come on, let's go. We're going home. Romans chapter 5, verse 8, the New Living Translation says, "But God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die for us while we were still sinners." No matter how you look at it, we were born sinners. God continued to love and make a way for us through Jesus Christ. Deuteronomy chapter 7 verse 9 says in the New Living Translation, "Understand therefore that the Lord your God is indeed God. He is the faithful God who keeps his covenant for 1,000 generations and lavishes his unfailing love on those who love him and obey his commands." The word lavish, the definition is sumptuously rich. And I got this mind picture of automobiles. The automobiles I was looking at was like $250,000. It was a Bentley. I don't remember what model it was, but it was, they only showed the interior. And it just looked like it wanted to, you'd sit in it and it would hug you and love you and take you in style anywhere you wanted to go. And that's how God's love is for you. It's not like, oh, let's get up and hustle and bustle out. Man, he's primping your hair and he's washing your face and he's cleaning your heart up. It's elaborate. It's rich. You know, when I used to look into my kids' eyes, it's like I felt secure holding them. I hope they felt secure looking back at me. It's extravagant. It's a feeling like no other when you hold a brand spanking new baby. I do remember when we first brought Daniel home, I didn't have to change the baby's diaper in the hospital. The nurses all did it because he was the only one there. We get home. I don't know. I've never babysat in my life. The only kid I ever held was my nephew who just turned 43 yesterday. And he peed on me. He peed on me. I went like this. And I said, I gave him back to his mother. I said, he's leaking. I gave him back. I was like, I don't know what to do with that. I wasn't allowed to babysit. And my younger brother was only 2 years younger than me, so my mom had to change his diapers. But think about how God loves you. And God says in Isaiah 49, "Can a woman forget her nursing child? Can she? She can. Think of women who have babies that don't want them. They leave them at a firehouse. They leave them at a doorstep. They leave them anywhere. And not have compassion on the son of her womb. Surely they may forget, yet I will not forget you. No matter how far you stray from God, he's not going to forget you. How many backs you turn to him, how many times, he's not going to forget you. He's there waiting, just like you were waiting for your kids when they came home after hours. If you were my mom, you were waiting with a bat because you broke the rules. But here it says, I'm just thankful that you're home. And that's God's vision for you. I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad you're back. Psalm chapter 103. In verses 8 through 11, in the New Living Translation, it says, "The Lord is compassionate and merciful, slow to get angry, and filled with unfailing love. He will not constantly accuse us, nor remain angry forever. He does not punish us for all our sins. He does not deal harshly with us as we deserve. For his unfailing love toward those who fear him is as great as the height of the heavens above the earth." God is not like people. God doesn't lie. We get angry, and let me tell you, I know somebody who's held grudges for over 60 years, for older than I am, and it's not a pretty sight to see someone who can hold a grudge for that long, because the love of God is not there, and I know for a fact they were taught the love of God. And all they have to do is change their mind, but do they want to? Nope. It doesn't matter what you say. They just want to be who they are and do things their way. You know what? There's no profit in doing things your way. You go so much further and faster with God in every category of your life when you do things his way. Geez, he even gave us a manual. He gave us his word. And now there's different translations that you can read if you don't understand one, because I know King James Version is sometimes pretty hard to understand. The only thing some verses say is when I put my name in there, it's supposed to be talking to me, but I'm not exactly sure what it's saying because I was not an English major. Anyhow, where was I? Accusing. God is not an accuser. The Bible talks about the accuser as being Satan, the devil. And just as personal as God is for you, the devil's just as personal. He knows exactly which button to push to get you to go 0 to 90 in a split second. He knows which buttons to push so that you close your mouth in a situation instead of opening it up and giving somebody the word when they're off it. Is it easy? Do I do it all the time? No. Do I try to do what I'm supposed to do? Yeah, sure. I loved my parents. I tried to do everything they taught me to do. My grandparents, thankfully, which is a different generation, they believed God, and they loved God, and they did the word. My mom being raised in that, I don't know where she took a turn, but it went to the other side. But I love the verse where God talks about he gives his word and his love to generations and generations, right? To 1,000 generations. I don't know what generation we're in now. I have a hard time thinking how old I'm going to be, but could you imagine? How far back do you have to go to trace where you met God? I know I met God when I was young. Shoot, my mom walked me to Sunday school. Did she come in? No, she didn't. But I went, and I remember the day that I confessed Jesus as Lord sitting in that Sunday school. And I see the sun coming through, and it's Resurrection Sunday. And I'm sitting there, and they're telling us the Sunday school story. And you know what? I think back to those kind of memories in my life, where God was at those times, because after that, I got lost. God didn't get lost. I got lost. And I took different paths. One said, in my mind, I'm smart. This is a great move. They're not always great moves that we make. They're not. They get us so far off base, we don't know whether we're coming or going. But when I finally did come back to God, He showed me things along my life where He was always there. I wasn't raised in an abusive home. My parents loved me. I had confidence in most things. I still didn't like to be in front of people, but I knew who I was. I was Kim Pinchuk. Just don't put me in front of the class, and I'm good. I'd be your best friend. I tell my kids, I'm your best friend. You don't want me to be your enemy. I'll be the enemy of the person who picks on my kid, just like any one of you would, right? You'd be that lion. It's not always a pretty sight, but you got to do what you got to do. So are you feeling God's love yet? Are you feeling Him tugging on your heart? Do you know how special you are? I read this book years ago. It's called You're Special to Me. It's about a man who makes puppets. Punchinello, I believe, was the puppet's name. And he lived in a village called Wemmick. And every puppet he made was different. And this guy was not the most prettiest puppet. And everybody made fun of him. And you know, oh, he didn't have any whatever. And he went up to the puppet master, and he said to him one day, "Why are you so down, Punchinello? Well, nobody likes me." He said, "I like you just fine." He's like, "Yeah, but you made me." He said, "But I know you. They don't know you." No, God does know you. Other people may not know God if you don't open your mouth. They may not know that you came through something so horrific and got to the other side that you could share with somebody God's love. That's why it's so important for us to open our mouths. 1 John chapter 4, verse 7. I'm going to read the Amplified. Because this is how I see people when I meet them for the first time, or I'm just in their presence. I just try to be the best that I can be. Beloved, let us unselfishly love and seek the best for one another. For love is from God, and everyone who loves others is born of God and knows God through personal experience. The one who does not love has not become acquainted with God, does not and never did know Him. For God is love. He is the originator of love, and it is enduring attribute of His name. By this is the love of God was displayed in us, in that God has sent His one and only begotten Son, the one who is truly unique, the only one of His kind, into the world, so that we might live through Him. In this love, not that we loved God, but that He loved us and sent His Son to be the propitiation, that is, the atoning sacrifice and the satisfying offering for our sins, fulfilling God's requirement for justice against sin and placating His wrath. Beloved, if God so loved us in this incredible way, we also ought to love one another. Each one of us is different, it's true, and each one of us has traveled in a different direction. Our circle of friends and family are all different. We've been raised Catholic, Protestant, Presbyterian, Pentecostal. There's a ton of them out there. But there's only one true God. And you always need to come back to Him. God knows you better than anyone. He knows everything you went through. He knows that in a situation, let's just take for an example, Steve, you're an electrician. In a bunch of telephone people, guess what? If you need an electric plug put in, Steve's the guy to call. It's not going to be everybody else. That makes you unique. You may be able to train somebody and show them because you're the only one in that group. However, if you don't open your mouth and do it, God can't use you. It's the same way with His word and His love. When we show through the Word what God did for us, a person in your situation could come through the other side with flying colors. They could walk with their head held high. They could love somebody else the way you love them. I'd like to leave you with this thought. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1, from the Message it says, "Watch what God does, and then you do it. Like children who learn proper behavior from their parents. Mostly what God does is love you. Keep company with Him and learn a life of love. Observe how Christ loved us. His love was not cautious, but extravagant. He didn't love in order to get something from us, but to give everything of Himself to us." Love like that. Where will we see God's heart? In the Bible, in each other. We can learn from the Gospels about Jesus and how He walked. He showed compassion, love, humility. In all truth, He reflected His Father. And that is what we should endeavor to do more and more each day. When you get up in the morning and you look in that mirror and your hair's this way and your makeup, if you didn't take it off because you were too tired, streaming down your face, guess what? Christ is in you. That's what you have to see. How much God loved you that He gave His Son. And let me tell you something, when you lose a kid, it's not a picnic. It's not a walk in the park. I remember the first couple years, I just felt like I was going through the motions. And one day I stood at my kitchen sink and I'm looking out the window and I'm trying to be strong because I still had children at home and I had Nick. And I remember saying to God, "How did you do it? How did you get through Jesus Christ dying?" You know what He said to me? He said, "I knew He was getting up. And 3 days after He died, He got up. For me." And you know what? My son spoke in tongues at 4 years old, and he prophesied. And I know one day I'll see him. When we get together, we're going to party. And he's going to be perfect, just like the rest of us, because Jesus Christ made it so that we could be that way. That's all I wanted to share.
If I could write a song to tell you how much God loves you, I would do it right now, but it might take a while.
This video is a presentation of Chapter and Verse Ministry, a practical research and teaching ministry. Our website is cvm.church, or you can call us at 610-650-8449.